There's many things that Jesus said and that Jesus did that seem confusing. They were confusing at the time of Jesus and they're still confusing today. And I want to share a story with you of something that happened that Jesus did that is a little bit strange. It's called the triumphant entry. And it's called that because Jesus is marching into Jerusalem and the crowd are celebrating him and they're welcoming him. And this happened on Palm Sunday. That's the day we remember today. Today is Palm Sunday. It's the week before Easter Sunday. And it's called Palm Sunday because as Jesus rode into Jerusalem and all the crowd are there cheering and waving, many people took palm branches and laid them on the floor for Jesus to ride in over. Some people even took off their cloaks and laid them down on the ground, and Jesus rode in over them. And the scene is almost like Jesus is returning from battle, or he's a conquering king, a mighty warrior who's coming back, and the people are cheering and celebrating his return. But the strange thing about this scene is that Jesus isn't riding into Jerusalem on the back of this grand stallion or a mighty steed. Jesus is riding into Jerusalem on the back of a colt, a young donkey. And I'd imagine it would have been a strange sight to behold. You know, the crowd are cheering, the crowd are celebrating Jesus coming in, welcoming him like a king. But Jesus is riding on a donkey. His feet would barely have got off the ground. Perhaps the donkey was struggling under his weight as he comes in, and I think it would have been a strange sight. And in doing so, Jesus is doing something very specific. Jesus is deliberate in what he's doing. It's actually a prophecy. Jesus is fulfilling something that prophets have previously foretold about the coming of the Messiah, that he will come, he will ride on the back of a donkey. But the image is quite clear because Jesus is a mighty king. He is a conquering hero, but he's not the one that we'd expect. You know, we think kings and the heroes and warriors are all powerful and almighty, are rich and have all of these things. They have stature and they have grandeur. And yes, Jesus does have all of those things. He is God himself. But Jesus lived this amazing life of humility. He lived this upside down kingdom and he did things that we didn't expect him to do. So as he comes into Jerusalem and the crowd are celebrating, the contrast is clear. Welcome me as your king, but I'm not the king that you might be expecting. But I also just want to highlight something about the crowd because the crowd are going wild. They love Jesus. They're celebrating Jesus. They're welcoming Jesus. But in just a week's time, as we will discover throughout these videos that we're going to post this week, the crowd turn on him. You know, at this point, Jesus is trending. Everybody wants a piece of Jesus. Everybody wants to follow him and be associated with him. Everybody wants to go along with the crowd and follow the crowd's opinion of who Jesus is. But in a week's time, opinion has changed. The popular opinion about Jesus has flipped. And instead of welcoming him as this hero, as this king, they're shouting his name for him to be crucified. They're wanting him to be nailed to a cross, and they're wanting him to be killed. And they're wanting a guy called Barabbas, a murderer, to be released in Jesus' place. You know, the crowd has flipped and they've just turned on their head. And there's something in that, I think, for you and for me, because often we can allow our opinion of who Jesus is and what we think about Jesus to be overly influenced by the crowd around us. And I wonder if that's true for you. You know, what do you think about Jesus? Who do you say, or who do you think Jesus is? Is that something that you've come to by yourself? Have you taken time to ponder that, to consider that for yourself? Or have you just gone along with the crowd and just followed what everybody else and what everybody else thinks and says? Well, that's a choice that you have to make. It's a choice that I have to make. This week, we're going to share with you a whole bunch of videos telling the story of that very first Easter, helping us to discover who Jesus is and what really went on all those years ago.